record, and here we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the future of the water and wastewater industry and the careers you didn't know about. I'm your host, Dave Kosminski, and we are here with another special guest. And this is a little bit different twist. Miss Liz Davidson, who works for the Chatham Health District, and her expertise is kind of private waters, okay, into testing wells and so forth. So, Liz, tell us. Thank you for coming down, by the way.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
Oh my gosh, man! So, tell us a little bit about your day job.
So I'm a sanitarian for the Chatham Health District, which requires us to regulate and inspect a variety of different things. I think your topic today is regarding wells and private wells. So we permit new wells.
Okay.
Hydrofracking, geothermal wells, and we look at the water test results, make recommendations for treatment, approve them, disapprove them, and we try to help residents with their private water questions.
Sure, but you also deal with the septic system, so there's the wastewater side too.
Correct. So we do regulate septic systems as well. There's separation distance requirements. We inspect food service establishments, cosmetology, daycare centers. We inspect a lot of different places and enforce many portions of the public health code.
That's my next career, cosmetology, I think.
And that's a good one, absolutely.
So tell us how you in your career path, tell us, what was your career path coming out of high school? Did you envision yourself doing?
So my career path, when I went to UConn, my major was going to be nursing.
Okay.
That didn't follow through. I loved food. So I changed my major to nutritional science my junior year.
Okay.
And I became I started working at some rehab facilities.
Okay.
As a dietary aide.
Okay.
And then when I graduated, I worked at the Hebrew Home and Hospital in West Hartford.
Oh, okay.
I became a supervisor. I got a job as a food service director at a skilled nursing facility.
Okay.
And I began talking to my health inspector.
Wow.
From the Bloomfield Health District.
Okay.
And I inquired about how to become a health inspector. So I took a class through Southern Connecticut State University.
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty soon I was an employee of the city of Meriden as a sanitarian 1.
Wow. Okay. Now, I mean, obviously, sanitarian in Meriden is a lot bigger city. Now, are you more specialized in a bigger city on what your tasks were during the day, or is it pretty much the same as you do here in Portland?
No, pretty different. So Meriden had a huge food service component. That was the majority of the inspections were food service related.
Right. Okay.
Then there was complaints, nuisance complaints, lead inspections. That was the majority of the work in Meriden because it is a city. So most of it was food service.
Okay. All right. So now, I mean, Meriden water, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of water wells in Meriden. Most everything is on city water there.
There's a few, yes. So some of the outskirts that border Southington and other areas, there are a few septic systems and wells in Meriden. So I didn't have a lot of experience there for on-site wastewater and septic systems until I started here at Chatham Health in 2004.
Okay, so you've been here quite a while. Wow.
It'll be 20 years next year. I just hit my 19th anniversary with Chatham Health.
Fantastic. You're still on a honeymoon. So, going back to, the wells and so forth, I know geothermal is huge now. Tell us how that, testing for those, what involves.
We don't actually test it all because it's a closed system.
Okay, so it's a loop system.
Right, so you're just taking basically the temperature of the earth from the water that circulates through there and bringing it up into your dwelling.
Heat exchanger.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So it's closed, so there is no water testing required for geothermal wells, but there are still separation distance requirements between like the septic system and other components.
Correct.
So we just go out there and just take a quick look, make sure we're far enough from a sewer line or whatever the separation distance our requirements are.
Now, are you finding that PFAS has been an issue in a lot of the wells around?
Nobody tests for PFAS in private drinking water wells.
Really?
It's not required. I haven't seen, I don't think, anyone voluntarily test for that. In October of last year, 2022, there was a new mandate requiring new drilled wells be tested for arsenic, lead, and a couple and uranium.
Okay.
Added to what's required for a CO. Those are new testing requirements.
Okay.
For new wells. That was the latest requirement added for testing of private wells.
It's surprising. I would think a lot of the people that buy houses with wells and so forth, most people get a home inspection done, and the home inspectors don't push that issue, or?
I don't think they push that issue. Once in a while, we'll see people test for maybe like fluoride or more health concerning.
Right.
I mean, that they're more aware of.
Yeah. It's amazing how many calls I get, from people that just moved into town. Could you tell us what the fluoride level is in town? Because my dentist wants to know whether we need drops or not or whatever.
Yes, for infants, correct, because they don't want to provide too much fluoride to them.
Right.
Right. So they want to know, correct.
Right.
Yes.
We don't want infants with model teeth. So, yeah, exactly. Going back to the wells, as far as that goes, obviously you have bedrock wells and you have gravel. What do you see as far as the majority of the wells are bedrock wells or gravel back?
Yes, more bedrock wells.
And what are the depths typically in this town?
300, 500 feet.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on where you are. It's vastly different from area to area. We just had that wasn't in East Hampton though. I mean, it varies.
I guess from a standpoint of depth of well, obviously. You drill till you get water, and as far as that goes. So, I mean, what do you find that most of the wells are yielding, as far as gallons per minute?
Typically, so the well drillers have to meet a requirement.
Okay.
And it has to do with storage. So that can be all calculated. So you could have a half a gallon a minute, but if you have an 800-foot well,
right.
You would have enough volume of water to have, to maintain. So it's based on storage volume.
Okay.
Not necessarily the depth or the gallon a minute. It's a whole calculation that we do. But generally, it's pretty decent. I mean, I haven't seen anything under under a gallon a minute in a while.
Right. Right.
Plus, we're not in a drought. So
no. In fact, I'm on the State Water Planning Council, and we have a drought report. Every time we get to that topic in the agenda, we're good. As far as that goes. But now, I know, does the size of the house reflect on the amount of water that, I know the size of the house always figures into the septic system?
Correct. So septic systems are sized based on the number of bedrooms in the dwelling.
Okay.
Because that will let us know how many potential people can occupy and live in that dwelling. So a 3-bedroom house is technically sized for 6 persons potentially living there.
Okay.
For a well, no. Unfortunately, there is no. A 10-bedroom house would have the same requirement as a 2-bedroom home. There's no requirement for the size of the home.
For the size, right. Well, it's hot on the left, cold on the right. Payday's Friday.
Correct. So most people, don't even know what to do with their well, or that they should test it on a regular basis.
Yes.
So we do need to stress to the private water homeowners that testing of their well is, should be done, and the only person who's going to do it is them.
Right.
It's a private water system, so the homeowners are the owners of that system.
Are responsible for
Correct. So they should test it. It's recommended to test it in the spring, annually, if they can, and to test for bacteria, pH. There's numerous things that you can test for. But the minimum would be to make sure that it's potable.
Exactly, for
and
bacteria.
Safe to drink.
Well, I ask so many people that have well water, or wells and so forth. I says, do you test your well? Oh no, I have well water. It's pristine. I said, oh, okay. Pristine today could be not so pristine tomorrow.
Correct. So there are obviously mechanical components, and there's the casing and the well cap.
Yep.
There's a vent. There's a screen.
Yep.
You have the electrical line that comes in. Things degrade just there as they do everywhere else.
Yep.
So those things have to be checked.
Yeah.
The seal on the well cap.
Sure.
Many things can go wrong, and if something can get in there, then you can have coliform bacteria or E. coli without knowing it. So it's good to check your well.
Sure.
Sometimes I see wells, well caps that I can shake.
Right.
That's usually not a good sign.
No, it's not.
The lawnmower whacking the electrical part of it. There's a variety of different things that I see, and when I do see them, typically when we do soils testing or septic inspections, I will recommend to the owner that they should get a certified well cap installed, and maybe what they have is
a little inadequate. Yeah.
Inadequate. Yes.
Now the well casing, what's that? Has to be 12 inches or 16 inches?
It has to be only 6 inches from the surface. So just the casing. So the casing itself, the well cap wouldn't count with that. So usually the well cap extends beyond the well casing slightly.
Okay.
So you want 6 inches of the well casing. More is better, but that's the minimum requirement.
Now, from a testing standpoint, when people test their wells coming out of the gate, for a new house or whatever, typically do they test for iron and manganese as well?
That's required for new wells, yes.
Oh, okay.
That is required. And that's typically, different areas have different, typically it's high, and then people require or want treatment because
some type
of
system.
Odor or discoloration.
Right.
Because it's just not palatable. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't look good. And then some wells are very, very high in those. And, we would recommend treatment because a lot of manganese, over 10 times the action level, would have a health concern.
Sure, absolutely. Now, do you get involved in inspecting the treatment systems on houses, or that's once it's in the house, it's their responsibility?
It's their responsibility. They're technically, when you're hitting the water line or doing any type of mechanical, that would be the building inspector that would come in. Technically, I think a building permit would be required
for a system.
But we don't inspect it. Sometimes we try to gather information because typically those systems will backwash or need to backwash
Effluent,
somewhere, backwash the filter. So that is more of our concern, that is appropriately taken care of and not discharged into the septic system.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask too. Septic, that's a no-no.
That's a no-no. There's very, very few septic water treatment systems that can discharge, but still you need to apply for us to approve that it would be acceptable to discharge into the septic system.
Right. Now, going back on the wastewater side now, are most septic systems now considered an engineered system? Or, I know back in the day when I grew up, we had a metal septic tank and, went out to a leaching field with a D-box, and that's it. See ya.
So most new home construction consists of engineered septic system design, just because of the lots that we have left over, typically are not ideal, soils. The good lots are taken.
Yeah, pretty much.
But for repairs, We try to be flexible.
Yeah.
And we will allow installers, licensed installers, to do the design for us to review.
Okay.
In order to kind of decrease the cost.
Sure.
But when it's concerning, when we have multiple layers of issues, typically we will require an engineer.
A certified engineer.
Right. So the public health code stipulates areas of special concerns, and in those instances, we can require an engineer. It could be, ledge less than 60 inches,
Right. Right.
groundwater less than 36 inches. But those themselves alone do not require, necessarily an engineer. They're not necessarily difficult. So
Yeah.
we will allow installers to do the whole process, the soils testing, the design, and then obviously the installation thereafter, as long as there are not multiple layers of concern.
Right. Now, I'm sure you have to go out and investigate, complaints, my neighbor's septic tank is flowing into my driveway or whatever. So how do you deal with that?
Just in any way that we would do a regular complaint, any nuisance complaint. We knock on the door. We say we received a complaint, and if we're allowed permission, we will ask them. Are they having an issue? Do they know where their septic tank is? Do they?
When's the last time you pumped it?
We may ask that too. We in order to really do anything as the health department, we need to observe a violation
Sure.
of some kind. So there would literally have to be wastewater effluent on the ground surface, visible to us, or a backup of the system inside, which we don't have access to.
Right. Right.
But, to issue an order of repair.
Mm-hmm.
In that type of situation. It doesn't happen very frequently that people call on
Right.
their neighbors regarding a septic system overflow.
Now, do you ever get complaints that go to the state health department that get funneled back to you guys?
Occasionally, very rarely, probably more food related than septic system related.
Oh, okay. All right. I got a bad hamburger.
Yeah, a lot of them are consumer protection related. They went to the store, they're seeing something out of date, discolored, more of a consumer protection product expiration. The milk there is expired.
That could be in a supermarket.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That they don't like what's being sold at their local grocery store.
Okay. Well, I suppose that's all part of the issue, when you get to, in food safety as far as that goes. I mean, it's important, expiration dates and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, for sure. Now, septic systems, obviously, on a new house, you would go out and do a perk test or a test pit, and tell us what that tells you.
So typically, somebody wants to build a home, they call us, we do soils testing on the property in an area that, they would like to place their septic system. Usually it's about 4 to 5 test holes, and we look at the profile. We look for a lot of different things. Mainly, the most important things are groundwater and ledge, because those are the design criteria that we have to design around, and we have cutoffs for having it be suitable. So we look for those things. We also look to see if there's any fill, because we're looking to find naturally occurring soil. That is what is going to clean the effluent.
Sure.
So that's what we do is we have a contractor that the homeowner hires, dig the holes. We note the profile from the topsoil all the way down to the last layer, typically down to 84 inches, so about 7 feet.
Okay. All right. Yeah. As far as the test. Now, what is the minimum size lot now for in Portland? What's referred to?
That's a zoning criteria, probably half an acre, I would think, for a septic system.
Yes.
I don't even know, because that is not something that the health department enforces.
Oh, okay. All right. So, most.
But typically, in order to to get a well
Yeah.
And a septic system on a lot, a half an acre is a good size to work with.
Right.
Anything smaller than that depends on the configuration of the lot. Long and narrow might work, but then a weird puzzles piece size may not work.
Now, what's the separation for around a well? 200 feet or?
For a regular private drinking water well, you would be 75 feet from the septic tank, distribution, and leaching system.
Okay. Now, that 75 feet, that what if that's close to a boundary? Do you have to get a variance?
So the well regulations do not have a property line setback.
Okay.
For new wells have to be 25 feet from a drain.
Okay.
75 feet from sources of pollution, which would include your septic system.
Right.
And then there's different separation distances and recommendations, for example, for, let's say, an underground propane tank.
Okay.
Or let's say you have for a wastewater treatment system. So
Okay.
you have a water treatment system, right, that you want to install.
Right.
That needs to be 75 feet away from the well. So a drain would include the footing drain around the perimeter of the house. It may also include a drain around a pool, an underground pool.
Okay.
A curtain drain.
Okay, yep.
Any type of drain.
Wow. Okay. Now, from a standpoint of drain, now going back to the effluent from, treatment systems, I don't know, where do most people discharge there? Do they build a cistern, or do they pump it into a catch basin, or, where?
So it was kind of the wild, wild west when I initially started in 2004, because DEEP had a regulation, but it really didn't say what to do and how to do it. It basically said you couldn't dump it onto the ground surface,
Okay.
and that was it. So you were never permitted to discharge wastewater treatment backwash onto the ground surface. But we still do find that homeowners, put it into their gutter system, or just, near their foundation in a bush. And then over time they realize that's not a good idea, because the area is kind of a gross mess.
Depending on what kind of treatment they're doing. I mean, most treatment systems are, a salt or something like that. Do many people use the activated carbon?
A little bit, not much.
More for odor?
Yeah. So what they can do is most of the systems are now like little mini leaching systems that get installed. We see that now a lot with obviously new construction and real estate transactions.
Sure.
So they'll make that correction at that time as required by, or required by the buyer to make the correction, because it's not permitted to go into your septic system or to be discharged onto the ground surface.
Cool. All right. Well, Liz, thank you for coming down. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So now I have wrap-up questions.
Okay.
Obviously, my altar life is the music side. Okay, so what was the first concert you ever went to?
Oh, it's definitely Lake Compound, but I don't remember.
Okay.
Oh boy, it had to be in the late 80s.
Okay, so if you got stuck on a desert island, what would be your desert island albums that you'd bring with you?
Probably Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe some Led Zeppelin.
Okay, yeah.
Leonard Cohen.
Ooh, there you go.
I
There's a little diversity. Nice. Okay, all right. So now the next question: desert island food. What would be your desert island food?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. Okay, fantastic.
I would need to stay cool, and literally it's my dessert nearly every night. So.
Well, it's funny. We ask that questions on a lot of our podcasts and so forth, and obviously sushi is high, so that's where I get sushi. Okay, and also pizza. Pizza is one of another top 5.
Yes,
as far
I
as
would probably say like burger and fries, maybe after my number one choice of ice cream.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. So, all right. Fantastic. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of the future of the water and wastewater industry and the careers that you didn't know about. And I'm your host, Dave Kosminski, and Miss Liz Davidson was in the house here from the Chatham Health District, telling us all about the private side of water wells and septic systems and so forth. But thanks for coming down, Liz.
Thank you for having me, Dave.
All righty.